The iron crown wasn't worth much anymore. Its silver had tarnished, one emerald was missing, and the velvet lining inside had long since rotted away. Yet Lady Eleanor Ashcombe held it with such care that anyone watching would have thought she was carrying the crown jewels themselves. It wasn't a crown. It was her wedding circlet. The last thing her late husband had ever placed upon her head. The old antiques merchant barely glanced at it. £20. Eleanor didn't flinch. It is handcrafted Norman silver, she replied quietly. The emeralds alone. One emerald is missing. The workmanship. 20. Outside, snow drifted lazily across Market Square in the Duchy of Blackridge, covering the streets in white silence. Inside the cramped shop, hope quietly died. Eleanor lowered her eyes. Very well. The merchant reached beneath the counter for his ledger. At the back of the room, another customer stopped breathing. Duke Adrian Ravenscroft had entered the shop only moments earlier to examine a collection of medieval maps discovered beneath an abandoned monastery. Instead, fate had handed him something infinitely more precious. He recognized the woman instantly. Not because of the crown. Because of the way she stood. Straight-backed. Proud. Unbroken. Even while selling the last piece of her past. Eleanor. The name escaped him before he realized he'd spoken aloud. She froze. Slowly. Very slowly. She turned. For 3 endless heartbeats, neither of them moved. The years disappeared. He no longer saw the exhausted widow dressed in worn gray wool. He saw the brilliant young woman who had once argued with professors twice her age at Cambridge gatherings while every nobleman in the room pretended not to notice that she was the cleverest person among them. She recognized him too. Your Grace. Her voice was perfectly composed. As I live and breathe. He stepped forward. I didn't know you were in Blackridge. I wasn't. A faint smile touched her lips. Not until misfortune introduced me. The merchant looked nervously between them. You know each other? No, Eleanor answered before Adrian could speak. We merely occupied the same world once. There was no bitterness. That hurt him more. 5 years ago, Adrian had intended to ask for her hand. He had delayed. Duty first. Romance later. By the time he returned from settling a rebellion along the northern border, she had married another man. A charming viscount. A handsome dreamer. A man who promised adventures instead of responsibilities. 3 years later. The Viscount was dead. His investments had collapsed. His estate seized. His creditors scattered across England hunting what little remained. And somehow, Lady Eleanor Ashcombe had disappeared from society altogether. Until now. Selling her wedding crown for £20. The merchant cleared his throat. If we're finished reminiscing. Adrian placed a leather pouch upon the counter. It landed with a heavy thud. Gold coins spilled across the wood. I'll purchase the crown. The merchant's eyes widened. For how much? Adrian didn't even look at him. Name your price. The old man swallowed. £80. Adrian pushed the pouch forward. There are 200. The merchant blinked. I cannot make change. Keep it. Silence filled the room. Eleanor stared at him. I did not ask for your charity. It isn't charity. It certainly resembles it. Adrian picked up the circlet carefully. No. He slipped it into a velvet wrapping. It resembles respect. Without another word, he turned toward the door. She followed him into the snow. Duke Ravenscroft. He stopped. You've embarrassed me. I know. You had no right. I know. You always were infuriating. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. So you remember. I remember everything. Those 4 words struck him harder than any sword ever had. Snowflakes settled on her dark hair. She looked thinner than he remembered. Older. Not by age. By sorrow. You should return the crown, she said softly. I cannot. It belongs to me. It still does. She frowned. Then why buy it? Because, Adrian replied, I refuse to let strangers decide the value of your memories. For the first time. She looked away. It was only for a second. But he saw it. The exhaustion. The endless battle she'd been fighting alone. I have somewhere to be, she whispered. I imagine you do. She nodded politely before walking toward the poorer quarter of town. Adrian watched until she disappeared beneath the falling snow. Then he climbed into his carriage. Follow her. His coachman looked startled. Your Grace. At a distance, past shuttered bakeries. Past abandoned mills. Past rows of crumbling cottages. Finally, Eleanor stopped before a neglected stone building that had once been St. Agnes Grammar School. Children poured through the doorway laughing. Some carried slates. Others hugged books repaired with thread. Adrian frowned. She wasn't living there. She was teaching there. He remained hidden as she entered. An elderly priest approached the carriage. You seem interested in Miss Ashcombe. You know her. The priest sighed. Everyone does. What happened? She arrived nearly a year ago. Alone. Entirely. And she teaches. Without salary. Adrian blinked. What? The school closed after losing its benefactor. The priest smiled sadly. She reopened it herself. How? She sold nearly everything she owned. The Duke looked toward the weathered building. And the children? Most are orphans. His jaw tightened. How many? 43. The priest continued quietly. She feeds them before she feeds herself. Adrian stared through the frosted carriage window. 43 children. A bankrupt widow. An abandoned school. And today, she had sold her wedding crown. Not for herself. For them. The realization settled over him like the winter snow. She hadn't been trying to survive. She'd been keeping 43 innocent lives alive. Something changed inside him. Not pity. Resolve. The kind forged in battle. The kind that reshaped kingdoms. He reached into his coat and removed the velvet bundle containing the silver circlet. Running his thumb across its worn edge, he spoke quietly. Prepare Blackridge Castle. His coachman leaned down. Are we returning home, Your Grace? No. Adrian's eyes never left the little school. We're bringing someone home. The next morning, Blackridge Castle awoke beneath a blanket of silver frost. Inside his study, Duke Adrian Ravenscroft stood before the towering windows overlooking the valley. Farmers were already leading horses across frozen fields, smoke curled from distant cottages, and church bells echoed across the hills. Normally, those sights calmed him. Not today. His thoughts remained with a woman teaching hungry children in a collapsing schoolhouse. A knock interrupted his silence. His steward entered carrying several leather-bound ledgers. "You requested information on Lady Eleanor Ashcombe, Your Grace." Adrian nodded. "What have you found?" The steward hesitated. "You may wish to sit." "I prefer standing." The old man opened the first ledger. The debts left by Viscount Ashcombe were not accidents. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The Viscount invested heavily in the North Sea Trading Company." "I know that much. But he wasn't ruined by poor investments." The steward slid several legal documents across the desk. "He was ruined deliberately." Adrian picked up the papers. Every page carried the same signature. Lord Reginald Blackthorne. One of England's wealthiest landowners. A ruthless financier. A man whose smile was more dangerous than most men's swords. What did Blackthorne do? He offered loans. The steward turned another page. Impossible interest rates. Collateral. The Ashcombe estate. Adrian's jaw tightened. And when the Viscount couldn't repay, Blackthorne seized everything. The house? Yes. The vineyards? Yes. The servants' cottages? Every stone. And Eleanor? The steward's voice softened. She was given 7 days to leave. Silence settled over the room. Adrian slowly closed the ledger. He knew. Knew what, Your Grace? That she would be left with nothing. The steward nodded. Worse. He continued sending collectors even after the estate was gone. Adrian looked up sharply. For what? There was one debt the Viscount never settled. How much? £8,000. Adrian almost laughed. Not from amusement. From disbelief. They're still demanding it. They claim Lady Eleanor inherited the obligation. Adrian walked toward the fireplace. No. They have no legal right. They know. Then why? The steward met his eyes. Because they hope fear will force her to reveal something. Adrian turned slowly. Reveal what? The steward lowered his voice. No one knows. That afternoon, Eleanor was repairing broken desks when loud voices echoed outside the school. Children stopped reading. The youngest clung to one another. Hooves thundered across the frozen courtyard. 5 black carriages. Armed guards. Expensive horses. Lord Reginald Blackthorne climbed down first. His tailored coat probably cost more than the school building itself. He smiled. The sort of smile wolves wear before feeding. Lady Ashcombe. Eleanor set down her hammer. My lord. I've come regarding your debt. I've already explained. You've explained many things. He glanced around the classroom. But never the one thing I actually want. The children watched silently. Blackthorne stepped closer. I'll ask one final time. I've given you every document. I don't want documents. What do you want? His smile widened. Fear crossed Eleanor's face. It disappeared almost instantly. But Blackthorne saw it. So. He chuckled. You do have it. I burned everything. A lie. I've nothing left. Blackthorn turned toward the children. What a shame. His polished boot struck the nearest desk. It splintered across the floor. Several children screamed. Another guard overturned a bookshelf. Books scattered everywhere. One little girl burst into tears. Stop. Eleanor rushed forward. This has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with them. Blackthorn leaned close enough that only she could hear. If I cannot find the journal. His voice became almost pleasant. I'll make certain this school disappears before winter ends. He straightened his gloves. You have 48 hours. Then he walked away. His men followed. The courtyard fell silent. Broken wood littered the classroom floor. One little boy quietly picked up a torn spelling book. Another hugged his crying sister. Eleanor closed her eyes. For one heartbreaking moment. She looked utterly defeated. Someone had witnessed everything. From the ridge overlooking the school. Duke Adrian lowered his spyglass. His expression had become terrifyingly calm. Beside him, Captain William Mercer shifted uneasily. I've seen that look before. Adrian didn't answer. It was the same look you wore before the Battle of Norcaster. Still nothing. Mercer sighed. Someone's about to regret their decisions. Adrian finally spoke. Find everything Blackthorn owns inside my duchy. The mills. Everything. The mines. Everything. The shipping contracts. Everything. Mercer smiled. You intend to ruin him. Adrian mounted his horse. No. His voice carried the cold certainty of judgment. I intend to remind him whose land he's standing on. That evening, Eleanor returned to the tiny room she rented above the village bakery. She locked the door. Pulled a loose floorboard aside. Reached into the darkness. Her fingers closed around a weathered leather journal. Thomas's journal. She sat beside the candlelight. Slowly opening it. Inside were pages of coded figures. Shipping routes. Names. Bank accounts. Bribes. Payments. Hidden partnerships. And one name appeared more often than all the others. Lord Reginald Blackthorn. Thomas hadn't merely borrowed money. He had accidentally uncovered one of the largest financial conspiracies in England. Smuggling. Fraud. Political bribery. Even murder. No wonder Blackthorn wanted the journal. It could destroy him. A single tear finally escaped Eleanor's eye. Not for Thomas. Not for herself. For the children. If Blackthorn learned she still possessed the evidence, he would burn the school to the ground. A sudden knock echoed downstairs. She froze. Another knock. Louder. Then the baker's frightened voice. Lady Eleanor. She hurried to the landing. What is it? The old baker looked pale. There's a duke asking for you. Her heart stopped. Not Blackthorn. Adrian. He stood outside beneath the falling snow, holding her silver wedding circlet. His cloak was dusted white, his face solemn. When she opened the door, he looked directly into her eyes. I know about the journal. Every ounce of color drained from her face. She instinctively stepped backward. You've been searching my room? No. Then how? I know the kind of man Blackthorn is. His voice softened. And I know the look of someone protecting others. She remained silent. Adrian held out the velvet-wrapped circlet. I didn't come for this. Then why are you here? He took one slow step closer. Because you're about to fight a war. Snow swirled between them. And this time. His blue eyes never left hers. You won't fight it alone. The snow fell harder as Eleanor stood in the doorway. The leather journal felt impossibly heavy beneath her arm. For nearly 2 years, it had been both her greatest protection and her greatest curse. Now another man knew it existed. She searched Adrian's face for deception. She found none. You should leave, she whispered. No. If Blackthorn discovers you're helping me, he'll come after your duchy. He already has. She frowned. What do you mean? Adrian, the Crown informed me this morning that Lord Blackthorn has accused me of obstructing debt recovery and interfering with lawful business. Eleanor stared at him. He petitioned Parliament. He has influential friends. And because of me. No. Adrian folded the letter again. Because men like him believe power belongs only to those willing to abuse it. He stepped closer. You once asked me why I never fought for you. The memory stung. I remember. I was too late once. His voice became quiet. I won't be late again. 3 days later. The great hall of Blackridge Castle overflowed with noblemen, magistrates, merchants, and representatives from the Crown. Blackthorn had demanded a formal hearing. He expected an easy victory. Instead, he found Duke Adrian seated calmly beneath the banners of House Ravenscroft. Beside him sat Eleanor. Not behind him. Beside him. The gesture alone shocked the room. Whispers rippled through the hall. Why is she sitting there? She's only a widow. The Duke is making a statement. Blackthorn smiled confidently. Your Grace. Lord Blackthorn. I trust you've reconsidered interfering in legal matters. I have. Blackthorn looked pleased. Excellent. I've decided to interfere even more. Laughter echoed through the hall. Not from amusement. From surprise. Blackthorn's smile disappeared. You misunderstand your position. No. Adrian rose slowly. You misunderstand mine. The room fell silent. I am Duke of Blackridge. His voice carried effortlessly through the hall. No creditor collects debts inside my duchy through intimidation. No orphan loses their school because of greed. No widow is hunted because she refuses to surrender to corruption. Blackthorn laughed. Strong words. They're not words. Adrian nodded toward Captain Mercer. The great doors opened. 6 royal investigators entered. Behind them came clerks carrying crates of ledgers. Blackthorn frowned. What is this? The beginning. Eleanor slowly stood. Every eye turned toward her. Her hands trembled only slightly. She placed Thomas's weathered journal upon the long oak table. The room became utterly still. Blackthorn's face lost all color. No. She opened the first page. This journal records illegal shipments through Dover, Bristol, and Newcastle. Another page. It details payments made to customs officials. Another. It lists the names of noblemen accepting bribes. Another. It records the disappearance of witnesses. Gasps filled the chamber. One magistrate removed his spectacles in disbelief. A bishop quietly crossed himself. Blackthorn slammed both hands onto the table. Those are lies. They're your signatures. Eleanor calmly turned another page. Every payment. Every date. Every coded shipment. Everything matched the Crown's own investigations. One royal investigator stepped forward. "We've spent 6 years searching for this evidence." He looked at Eleanor. "You've had it all this time?" She nodded. "I couldn't You've just ended the largest corruption network in the kingdom." Blackthorne panicked. Without warning, he drew a concealed pistol. Several women screamed. The weapon pointed directly at Eleanor. "If I fall..." His finger tightened. "So do you." Everything happened at once. Adrian moved. He crossed the distance before anyone else reacted. The gun fired. The explosion shook the hull. Eleanor cried out. Then, silence. She looked down. There was no blood. Instead, Adrian staggered. The bullet had struck his shoulder. He had stepped between her and the shot. Captain Mercer tackled Blackthorne to the floor. Guards rushed forward. Within seconds the disgraced lord lay in chains. Yet Adrian remained standing. Barely. Blood stained the sleeve of his navy coat. Eleanor caught him before he collapsed. "You're hurt. It appears." He smiled weakly. "I've had better mornings." She pressed trembling hands against the wound. "You fool. I've been called worse." Tears finally escaped her eyes. Real tears. Not from fear. From love. "You promised you wouldn't be late again." "I wasn't." Weeks later, spring returned to Blackridge. The abandoned school had become the largest academy in the northern counties. The 43 children now had proper classrooms, books, teachers, warm meals. Every expense had been paid anonymously. Although everyone knew exactly who the anonymous benefactor was. Inside the castle gardens, Adrian walked slowly, his shoulder still healing. He found Eleanor beneath an ancient oak tree. She held the silver wedding circlet. "I've decided," she said. He waited. "I'm not keeping it." His eyebrows rose. "It belongs to my past." She smiled. "I'd rather wear something that belongs to my future." From her pocket she produced a small velvet box. Inside rested a simple sapphire coronet. Not extravagant. Elegant. Strong. Beautiful without needing to prove it. Adrian understood immediately. "You've accepted your place as Duchess." She shook her head. "I accepted that weeks ago." She stepped closer. "I'm accepting you." His carefully controlled composure vanished. "You make it very difficult to remain dignified." "I've noticed." She laughed. "I rather enjoy it." He gently took both her hands. "Eleanor. I loved a charming dreamer once." She looked into his eyes. "I admired a powerful duke." Her voice softened. "But I fell in love with the man who stood between me and a bullet." The world seemed to stop. Birdsong filled the gardens. The wind carried the scent of spring blossoms across the estate. This time, when Adrian kissed her, there were no contracts. No bargains. No debts. No rescues. Only two souls who had finally arrived exactly where they were always meant to be. 1 year later, people across England spoke of the Duchess of Blackridge with equal measures of admiration and fear. Not because she was cruel. Because she could not be manipulated. She audited corrupt officials herself. She built schools across the duchy. She established hospitals for widows and orphan children. Farmers trusted her. Workers respected her. Even Parliament listened when she spoke. Whenever someone asked Duke Adrian how he'd managed to marry the most remarkable woman in England, he always smiled before giving the same answer. "I didn't save her. I simply recognized greatness before the rest of the world did." And every winter, on the anniversary of the day they met again, the Duke and Duchess would visit the little antique shop in Market Square. The old merchant had long since retired. The building had become a children's library. Above the entrance hung a small silver crown. Not as a symbol of royalty, but as a reminder that true worth is never measured by what someone is forced to sell. Only by what they refuse to surrender.